The FNRad Snowboard podcast is presented by Vans. Season 6 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Finest Quality Crow's Nest Barbershops, Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC, and Stance Socks. Tribute Board Shop offers a curated selection of the best snowboard, skateboard, and splitboard stuff you can buy. So whether you're a veteran rider or a new initiate into the board life, their incredibly friendly staff is in the shop 7 days a week to get you fitted with the right knowledge and the right gear for the best enjoyment of your season. When you're in Nelson, swing by Tribute for high fives and good times, or go to tributeboardshop.ca. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain and Mount Seymour. I rode Mount Seymour's Mushroom Park jumps with my buddy 57 last week, and I took my daughter up to Seymour last Friday, and we lucked out and got fresh tracks in the sun, down mystery glades. I just can't say enough good stuff about Seymour. The community up there is the best. I'm calling this episode Hustling for Good with Steve Larosiliere. Many listeners participated in a raffle last season to raise money for Stoked.org, and Steve is the founder of Stoked, which is a nonprofit that gets underserved kids out snowboarding. He's also a very inspiring speaker and person in general, so I invite you to follow him on Instagram. He's at Steve Laros. I originally recorded with Steve right after the raffle, but the audio was unsalvageable, and it took us a little bit to reconnect. I'm so glad that we did. And last Thursday, we finally recorded over Zoom. And because it was the day after the pro-Trump Capitol Hill riot, we started in a very somber space.
People get really caught up in just upholding what the world is, thinking that like, oh, it worked out for me. It definitely should work out for everybody else.
Yeah.
Ignoring the, inequality that exists for other people that don't look like them or come from different backgrounds.
Oh God, where do we even start with how big of a fuck up this is?
Yeah, I record on my Instagram. I record like a thought of the day, and I didn't really address the thing that happened yesterday, and partly it's because I grew up being a Haitian American, and if you're Haitian, you're kind of thinking that all government's not corrupt is pretty corrupt, and democracy is kind of a farce. And at any given moment, there's a coup that could happen. I remember that's like how I grew up. Like, even though I was in the United States, it's like, oh, there's a takeover, there's a dictator, there's a coup. That's just.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, I was shocked. And then I was like, oh, first of all, that's how the country was built, from takeovers. And then secondly, so I always come down to like, it may come off like I'm like, an individualist, but like, it's how we react to things, right? And I see people that get really, really upset and shocked. And because the United States, there's the allure and the appeal that like it's the land of dreams and opportunities, and it is, and it's also the place of injustice, hypocrisy, corruption. It's like it's everything. It's like heaven and hell, right? It's just and depending on where you end up in life or how you grew up, and even some personal initiative and drive and opportunities, like those are all things that really dictate where you end up, right? And so
I've been reading your posts on Instagram lately. I'm really happy that you're in my feed. It's great.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm like I don't like that part of technology where like if you just forget to engage with people, like it just kind of deletes people out of your memory, and it's really fucked up, right?
It is.
Like it's really fucked up.
Yeah, the algorithms are fucked. Like, I wish there was something you could do on Instagram where you say, like, look, I just want more diversity in my feed. That's it. I just want that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you got shit that you wouldn't normally see. You're not seeing a bunch of your curated friends doing the same dumb shit. You know what I mean?
Sure,
I'm sure they could do that. But yeah, your inspirational quotes, they sit with me, dude. Like the one
Thank you.
about the thing that's in the way of what you really want is the thing you really need to give up.
Yeah.
Like, is that, am I paraphrasing it correctly?
No, that's it. Yeah. My mom taught me that.
Amazing.
And I remember it was like right before I started Stoked, actually. I just come up with the idea for the snowboarding mentoring program. It was called Snow Mentor. And I just wanted to get this idea off the ground. And I was going, we were like on the verge of breaking up. And, you know, when you're with somebody for a long time, like 7 years, and I knew that somehow the life that I wanted didn't include this person. And I loved her so much. I remember talking to my mom, and she was like, sometimes, like, to get the thing you want the most, you got to give up the thing that you love. I was like, damn, that seems so crazy. And then we went to like a couple therapy. Even the therapist, he was like, so I can help you. He goes, but you just got to tell me whether you want to keep the relationship going or do you want to end the relationship? So she was like, okay, we'll think about it and then we'll get back to you, because we were engaged and all this sort of stuff. And I remember leaving the therapist's office with her, and she's like, so what do you want to do? I said, and she said, yeah, I want to continue the relationship. And then I said, I don't want to continue the relationship. And I said, I don't know. You know, I have a friend that says that if you when in doubt, chicken out, right? Like,
sure.
If you're doubtful of anything, just peace out. Yeah. You just start running, right? Like you just, because you should have certainty, right? And so, and I remember, it sounds so crazy what I'm about to tell you. So I had this mentor of mine, and this was like right after the therapist, and I was like, I need to make a decision. And I remember like the paradigm of life work is like you get up, you go to a job, and you work that job but I met this person that just kind of had this free life. It's not like she was a millionaire. She just did what she wanted. And she was serving people at this higher level. And you know, when you have something deep inside you and it's just kind of dying to come out and you just don't know how to get there. Like, that's where I felt. I felt so stuck. I felt like, my God, am I going to be in this relationship that is not going to make me happy? Am I going to be it, you know, and work and just kind of make it? And like, is this what life is? And here I'm seeing this person who's like showing me a window into what is possible, like literally what is possible. And she's like, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know. And you know, deep down, that's what you're supposed to be. Like, you know what you're supposed to do.
Yep. And
so she had this thing, and she goes, I have this game that I play with myself. And she goes, and she pulled out a quarter. And I remember standing on the corner of like Avenue. I was in New York City, Avenue A and like 10th or 11th, right? Mm-hmm. Like Avenue A, standing on a corner. And she goes, you want to play this game? I was like, yeah, sure. She goes, here's a coin. You pick heads or tails, you know, what you want. She goes, but the thing is, whatever the answer is, you have to follow through with.
Right.
And so I said to her, you know, I picked heads. And as soon as I flipped it, I knew what it landed on. And I flipped it far away just to kind of give it a chance to like, and she walked over like 15 feet. I flung it, right? And then and then she walked over, she picked it up. She could have been lying too, but she walked over with it, and I knew what it was, and it was heads, right? It was break up. And so So yeah, I ended up sort of ending that relationship and then going through like the slow process of like changing my life. On the opposite side, as like the home stuff was like sort of, because like when you untangle like 7 years of a relationship and you live together, that's like, it's not an easy process.
Yeah.
On my opposite side, I was like growing leaps and bounds because like the first time in my life, I felt like I had a reason. I was like, and literally the reason was I want to take 20 kids snowboarding 8 times, period. That was it.
Amazing. Amazing. That's so specific. That's awesome.
That was my only sole purpose and motivation at the time.
Incredible.
I had a job where I worked at a mentoring program, and the mentoring program, I was literally telling everybody at this mentoring program, I'm starting a snowboard mentoring program. I'm starting a snowboard mentoring program. Like I remember saying that.
It's incredible.
And, right before my ex and we broke up, we had gotten like this, like this one mentor with the coin flip. One of her other clients had a house on Fire Island, and so he let me stay there for the whole entire summer for like $400.
Oh, wow.
Like, I rented a room in his house. He was going through his own divorce. He was like, I don't care. Just give me $400 for the whole entire summer. So I got to live on this island in New York, and I spent a lot of time there. If I wasn't working, I was there. While my ex was staying, and she was staying in our apartment in Brooklyn. And so I just spent a lot of time there, and it was there I just started like dreaming up like what my life was and what it could be, and thinking about the snowboarding mentoring program. And I was like strategizing, and I was reading this book called The Power of Now.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy book.
Eckhart Tolle. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a real deal.
Dude, I was reading that book, and I was sitting on the beach reading that book, and I could see colors clear. I could see the blue in the ocean. I could see the grain of the sand. I could see the sky. I could see the outlines of the clouds. It's because I was able to eliminate a lot of the distractions in my life at that time, and just get so clear and focused that, like, I mean, imagine how clouded our visions are these days, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Imagine as humans, we are trapped by the things going on in our heads, and we're trapped by just everything.
The idea of the future is going to be better because right now we were lacking something that's, if we work really hard, we'll get it down the road. But you better make that choice right now, what it is, because you got to work for your whole life to get that.
What ends up happening is that you're filled with anger, resentment, bitterness from the past, and anxiety, sort of about the future. Right. And so, I got in the book, he talked about the space between thoughts, and literally I would spend my day just like being present, just like, he had talked about it in the book, like a cat about to attack something. Yes. Right. You're about to pounce, and what you're pouncing on are your thoughts. So you're just like a cat, just waiting for the thought to come in. And once it comes in, you just observe it and just don't attach yourself to it and just let it go. But you're just like, you want that gap to be bigger. And it was within that gap, that's where manifestation and true amazingness can happen in your life. Right. And so, that's what snowboarding does to me. It's like, it's this space between the thoughts that allows for unlimited possibilities to happen. Oh man,
that's it. On the show, often people will be talking about snowboarding, and then they'll say, the sport of snowboarding. And then they're like, oh, it's not really a sport. You just summed it up what it is. Snowboarding is the space between responsibilities in our life that we have to take care of, where we're really alive. It's like a flow state. It's like
Yeah.
You're not thinking about dinner tonight. You're not thinking about a fight you had. You're not thinking about anything. You're thinking, my life could be in danger right now, but I'm having the most amount of fun. Like if I drift off, I don't even drift off on the chairlift most times. Most times on the chairlift, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go here, then I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, oh my God, that was so much fun. Like I'm in a state of ecstasy when I'm snowboarding that I can find it other places, but it is so simple for me to get there through snowboarding.
It's so, it's, if you allow yourself, and so, I mean, for me, at the time it's really about, I just wanted to live in that space.
Rad.
And I wanted to share that with young kids because I got so much out of it. I was like, man, this is like the miracle drug right now. Like this is, everybody needs to do that. I'm sure skiers do the same thing, but I mean, it's all context, but the feeling that I get when you're riding a mountain and you're harnessing the sort of power and your potential and your mindset, and depending on who you're with will help dictate how you perform that day. Mm-hmm. And the conditions are never the same. And, it's just like, it's to the point now where I'm like, you kind of, I understand, I'm not even like this, but I understand why like professional snowboarders are like, fuck competing, fuck filming. I'm doing this for myself. Yeah. Like I completely understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Cause like when it becomes like an obligation, it takes the fun out of it.
Totally.
Right. And so for me, I just wanted to live in that space, and I wanted to make sure that like kids got to play, because when you get to play, you get to be creative. And so anyway, I'm just really grateful for the journey. I mean, it's been 15 years now. And I mean, you're in Vancouver, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So Vancouver so I came up with the idea in Whistler.
Rad.
Right?
Yeah, dude.
So my uncle owned a limo company in Vancouver, and he doesn't own it anymore, but he drove like rich people in limos, his limo company from like, from the airport up to, and he did that like multiple times, every day during the winter, right? Like that was like his thing.
Rad.
And so when I was going through this breakup, I said, I remember I remember laying on the floor in my living room with my cat there, like crying my eyes out because I made the decision to change my life, and like life as I knew it was over. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, if I could do anything in the world right now, what would I do? And I looked over in the corner of my living room and I saw my snowboard that I hadn't touched in like a year. And I was like, I would go to Whistler. I would go to Vancouver, visit my uncle, and go snowboarding in Whistler. That's what I said. And then I remember my ex, she went to go and visit her family for like a week. We had a cat, right? So like, and then I was like, all right, if you're going to go away and you come back, I'm going to go away. And then I went to Whistler, and we got to go to Grouse.
Yeah.
Drove me to Mount Baker.
Oh, sick.
And then we went to Whistler on my last day. And then it was in between that time, I just kind of just really got to appreciate the Pacific Northwest and just that landscape. Mm-hmm. Just the type, the environment of like that powder is just like, it's just something else. It's just a really beautiful, it's a beautiful part of the world. But I just got to just snowboard and just be free. And it felt amazing to be free. My uncle didn't even snowboard. he lit it. like I got driven around in a limo,
Insane.
right? Right. And so I just, and he sat in his limo while I snowboarded. And
Oh, that's
totally
amazing.
sounds expected, but he's my uncle.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
But it was awesome just to be driving around the mountains and like the sea to sky highway.
It's
like
beautiful.
Oh my God. It's like,
you're reminding me when I was a kid, my dad drove me to this mountain called Mattawa from Sudbury. And I looked it up yesterday because I think it's an hour. I thought it was an hour. And I'm like, that's a really nice thing for a dad to do. Drive an hour, sit there all day in a chair in the sun, smoking cigarettes, reading a book, waiting for me to be done snowboarding. I'm like, wow, that was a really nice thing to do. I looked, it's 4 hours. It was a 4-hour drive each way. Like, wow, man.
Your dad got alone time.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, right. He did. You're right.
Sure, I'll take Eric. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so wonderful. So the spark for the idea happens out here.
Yeah. And I mean, it was like, my story is like last run, last day, soaking it all in. I had a pretty kind of epic time in Whistler as well. Like, I remember I saw this guy, he looked like a skater. I went to a club, and even before I went there, I started emailing all of the club owners.
Wow.
Like the club promoters in Vancouver, just to like network.
Sick.
Like, hey, I'm from New York. I'm coming to town. And then I'd say, hey, can I? And then they'd say, hey, just hop the line or ask me by name. And then they just let me in. They get me drinks. And then like, wow. I was like a networker or whatever.
Awesome.
And so I remember walking up to this guy. Oh my God, why can't Eric? Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson.
You know that name?
Oh yeah, of course I know Tony Ferguson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tony Ferguson, pro skateboarder.
Yeah. He
used to ride for Girl.
Yeah.
I rolled up to him in a club. I was like, hey man, you look like a skateboarder. He was like, yeah. And he told me his name and ended up finding out who he was afterwards. But like, I kept in touch with him.
Sick.
And so I ended up leaving, ending that relationship, quitting my job. I had 3 months of savings. I moved back in with my family, literally just to start this idea. My hustle was that I was going to launch this snowboard mentoring program idea. And then I was going to use the fact that I could launch this nonprofit business and help people. I was going to use it as my way to not take the GMAT, which is the way to get into graduate school.
Yeah.
And I was going to apply to University of British Columbia and get my MBA. That was my hustle.
That's awesome.
That was my hustle.
Awesome.
It didn't end up happening like that, but yeah, I was just going to do that because I wanted to go to British Columbia, and I saw myself like living in British Columbia and just kind of like, being there and just kind of living that shred snow.
Yeah, dude. That's
business lifestyle.
Love it.
So anyway, so I started doing that. And then I later on, so like at the time I I was buying all of the magazines, Snowboard magazine, Snowboard, like all of them, Snowboard Journal. And I was just like pouring through. And I remember seeing that Burton Snowboard had bought I did a party at this place called Milk Studios in New York.
Yeah.
So I went to Milk Studios website and I saw that they had a snowboard team. I was like, what? A photography studio and a gallery has a snowboard team? What the hell is this?
Cool.
So I emailed them and said, hey, I'm starting this nonprofit program when taking it. Anyway, the owner of it met with me. And at the time I was just trying to get to meet as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Because I knew that's kind of what I needed. And so I did that. He connected with me. And then at the time I was like, I need a famous person to be part of this. And I remember Salema Masekela, who used to go by Sal Masekela, X Games host. I found out who his agent was. I called his agent once a week for 2 months.
Wow.
Until he called me back. And then the last day that I called him, I remember I went to New York. I went to Manhattan. I was just hustling. I was doing whatever it took to just make money. And I started calling my friends to fundraise. I was getting $50, $100 here, $25, whatever I could take to cobble up this thing. I was recruiting kids. I was finding nonprofit partners. I found out I booked a plane ticket to go to LA because I had emailed all of the different brands. Nobody was calling me back. I was like, I'm just going to go up to their door. I don't care.
Rad.
I'm just going to just show up at their offices. And I called Salema's agent, and I was like, hey man, is Salema interested, in talking to me or what? And he was like, they're like, I'm going to call you back. And he didn't call me back, but Salema called me back 5 hours later.
Wow.
And we just talked forever. And then he was like, so I'm down. What's next? After I told him I want to take inner city kids snowboarding. I want to take black and brown kids snowboarding to appreciate this lifestyle. And he's like, what's next? I was like, well, tomorrow to see you. I was in New York. I bought a plane ticket, cards, and I just flew.
Sick.
I had a cousin there. She had a car. She just let me have a car. I drove down to Orange County every day to meet with, as many brands as possible. Nobody really messed with me, but it didn't matter. It was just,
you're doing the work.
Experience.
You're doing the work. That's the thing, is that you're working as though this is your job. This is your thing. I love it. That's the only way to do it.
Honestly, that was the thing. And so, that first year was just really about getting the idea off the ground. And honestly, there's more than enough kids out there that need snowboarding, or, that need to be introduced to this culture. I mean, snow is in danger from the environment, right?
Totally.
But it's not like there's not a lack of mountains.
Right.
Right. The snowboarding industry needs to grow to have more people to advocate for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so whenever I tell my story that I just told you about how I, fell in love with snowboarding, and I even, forgot to tell you that, I remember being 10, 11 years old and in a supermarket. And I remember seeing a mail-in order catalog for a Burton snowboard catalog.
The part of the magazine that it's a little piece falls out and it says send this in for a yeah.
Exactly. And I remember getting that back. I like getting mail as a kid. And I remember pouring through the Burton snowboard catalog and just losing it. And I always dreamt of snowboarding. It was just not part of my daily experience. And so as soon as I had the opportunity to do it, I went all in.
Nice.
Cause it's a dream. I went to a good high school, and they had a ski club, but it wasn't I'm a first generation American. I'm a child of immigrants. That's not what we do, nor is it a value, right? It's not recreation that was not a value, right?
Right.
And so whenever I see families at the mountain, I'm like, man, that's people see the value in recreation on that level, because they know intuitively that it benefits young people and their children in a way that being in a classroom could ever do. Right. And so let's not even talk about the way that you push yourself on a level that, you can, once you acquire the skill of snowboarding, there's always the baseline, right? Then there's the different tiers and the different mountains and the different conditions, and depending on who you're with, but you never lose it. It's beautiful. However, then you get to a point where you really want to push it. And then that's where all of the resilience and the adaptability and the flexibility, and I just love the feeling of the hardest decision you have to make is what run to take.
Yeah.
feeling to have, right? That's such a big privilege. And what if, the idea of being able to mentally build resilience in your head to like wipe out so hard because you are pushing yourself on a trick or a run, right? And being on the verge of fear where you feel like you could die, but you're not. But that feeling like builds up so much in you that you're like, you know what? I mean, there were some athletes that I'm sure that you've had, like, you got the mind of a billionaire right now. Like the mindset of somebody that can push it and take risks.
Yeah.
That's like you can apply that mindset to anything. And literally, I always love to say this, like if you see somebody attempting a trick 100 times, they landed on, on the 101st time, they don't land it again, they'll go for another few hundred tries. Or they'll just take in the same run over and over and over again just to get it so that they feel they can get that feeling. So that thing, right, it's like perseverance, it's resilience, it's just like this muscle that I just want to put in a bottle and give to kids.
Yeah, dude.
Like I attribute a lot of my success to obviously to like my upbringing, my opportunities, but in my early 20s, I was full of shit and I gave up on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, man.
I didn't follow through on anything. And what made me follow through was becoming a better snowboarder, truthfully. Like I learned to not give up. And if you combine like that and you combine and you merge it with serving other people, you're like, oh man, first of all, I have it in me to not give up. Second of all, I'm helping other people. That's unstoppable.
That's
right. Like, you know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
Like, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, he flies planes. And he was flying to the Bahamas from Vermont. And he was telling me about like what it's like to like fly during a rainstorm. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds so scary, but it totally makes sense as to why you're successful in business. And I said, I learned how to embrace fear and take risk from snowboarding. Like one of my sort of epic stories was I got invited to go to Jackson Hole.
Ooh, nice.
On this trip was Dirk Collins, who started Teton Gravity Research.
Nice.
And a bunch of other people, this photographer named Chase Jarvis, Chris Gerard, this other guy, and Travis Rice, right? Well, he lives there.
Yeah.
And that day, Travis was not riding, but we went backcountry, right? And we went hiking. And first off, there was a group of us. They were like, here's a transponder.
Yep.
In case anything happens, this is how it works. I was like, don't I need to go to a class or something? Don't I need to get certified?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, you're good. We've seen you ride. You can keep up.
Rad.
And so I kind of got like that, like mentorship mountain confidence. They're like, oh, they said that I can do it. I can do it. Right.
Yep.
So we went hiking up this gnarly ass hill. We hadn't even strapped in yet. We're still hiking. You know, I'm a flatlander. I'm a East Coaster, right? Like, I'm just not acclimated to the mountain life.
Yeah, dude.
You know, I'm around these like mountain men. There was a few women on this trip, but they lived in the mountains. Like, don't get it confused. Yeah. They were beasts. Everybody was like sherpering me along.
Nice.
And I was definitely the last one. And I remember going up and I felt like giving up, but I was like, I'm with these people. I'm in community and they believe in me and they respect me. So I have no other choice but just to believe in myself. So I made it to the top of this first thing, this first milestone. Got up to the top And there's just like the gnarliest sort of like drop in. They're like, just point your nose down and just do what you do. And I was like, I can't even see over this lip right now. So I just get in, I just make the first turn. I'm like, and then I'm heel side. I'm like, this is like the highest that I've ever been, like anything. And so I just started taking micro moments, turn by turn, turn by turn, turn by turn, turn by turn, turn by turn. I make it down. I was like, whoa. And then I unstrap. We got more hiking to do.
Nice.
More hiking.
Nice.
Hiking. And then we strap in, we ride some more, and then we get to this traverse. There were some skiers on board. The traverse is probably as wide as my board.
Oh, man.
Maybe an extra foot. The drop off below about like 50 to 75 feet into like nothingness.
Oh my God.
Dude, the skiers, they're like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
There were two snowboarders and I was one of them. The one snowboarder lived in Jackson, so he was good. And I'm scared out my mind because this traverse, it's not like you can ride it. You have to skate along. So you're strapped in one, you're skating. You got to keep your foot, make sure that you stay on the little path where the snow is. You're skating. Dude, my hands are against the face of the mountain. It's so scary. So scary. I kept thinking like, oh my God, stoked. Oh, my wife was pregnant with our first kid at the time. Like, I was like, oh my God, I gotta make it back through to like, and so I kept envisioning flying back at home. Like I kept envisioning the future that I wanted. Yeah. Right. We finally made it through that gnarly section. At this time, my legs are on fire. Yeah. And I'm like, we're able to like make it down the mountain. Like an hour later, everybody's like showered, eating lunch. I walk in and everybody gives me a standing ovation. Yeah. Because I made it through one of the gnarliest things ever. And so anytime I think about something rough in my life, I use different anchors. And that story that I just told you, I was like, shit, I survived that. I can survive a pandemic. I can survive a recession. I have enough sort of community skills, confidence, and belief in myself to make it through. And so those are the things that tell the kids at Stoked. Like the more adventures and the more obstacles that I overcome in my own life, the more I use as reference point and anchors for them. And the skills that you learn from snowboarding apply to your life. And so, you know, with Stoked right now, it's like we are, you know, up until the pandemic, we snowboard, skateboard, and surf with kids. We'd after school programs. We use the lifestyle and culture of action sports to help teach kids the skills that they need in order to be successful, right? I mean, that's pretty much, that's what we do. And so I feel so honored and blessed that I've gotten to do this for so long. And we created a lot of opportunities from people. Even like I had some employees of mine, they went off and they started their own snow related organizations, which is awesome. That's so rad, dude. I'm friends with, you know, the executive directors of SOS Outreach and the Burton Chill program. Like they're like, we're all friends, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so awesome. There's two really big things that I want to talk about. My family, when I was growing up, they tithed to the church 10%. Yeah. That was like, and there's something very, very valuable about recognizing that you have it to give, right? Like, I mean, I'm still not doing it, but I'm on that cusp of like, I know I have to do it. And I'm looking like, so I make 60 grand a year as a mailman, and 10% of that $6,000. And saying that out loud, it's a lot of money. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I think, where am I going to squeeze to create that? But I also pay a lot in taxes. So there's like some tax incentives there. And I can't look at it like that because it's a
part of the human condition of, especially of people in North America, that we kind of just want to claw everything for ourselves. It's like, oh, I made that 60 grand. That's my money. And I think that not having it will put some kind of pressure on my life that's like unfair for my kids or unfair for my wife or unfair for me. But the truth of the matter is, the sooner you get started, the better.
Yeah.
And also that the benefit that comes from helping other people, which you can attest to, there isn't anything else you can do in the world that's that good. Yeah.
If people knew that the real cheat code to life is helping other people, more people would do it.
Yeah.
By helping other people, you help yourself in a way that you never, ever would think.
Right.
It's like telling the universe that, like, hey, I deserve more because I have so much to give that I'm going to get more.
Give me more to give. Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think that's really it. I think it's the missing piece to that happiness. A lot of anxiety and fear about the future and is going to be manifest in the idea that everything I get, I keep. Everything I get is mine. It's mine. Once you realize, oh, I want to get more because I want to help more. Like when you have some, like a higher cause like that, where you're actually, hey, it's not just me that benefits if I get more, it's everybody. So if I pledge 10% and then I kick ass and get a job that pays $1 million, now that's, it's $100,000. That's point number one. The other thing I wanted to mention was a lot of snowboarders that come on the show will mention the imposter syndrome. I've had it with the podcast. And people have it like, why am I a pro snowboarder? This is like the dream life. Imposter syndrome happens, right? But I heard yesterday that being yourself trumps the imposter syndrome. So obviously who you really are is somebody who really actually cares about sharing your knowledge with people that can really benefit from it.
Yeah.
And so I want to invite people to really be who they are, and to look into whether it's Stoked or whatever organization you want to donate to. Get out of your comfort zone and try and get that 10%. Try and get to that 10%. I think that 10% is actually a pretty cool number to shoot for.
I got to tell you, that 10% is hard.
It's hard, dude.
It's hard. But I mean, I think you could start little by little, right?
Sure.
So, you can start a little as like $10 a month to someplace.
Yeah.
And as you get more, you make more, then you can give more. I think 2020 was like a way better year than the year before. But like, yeah, I mean, I pick a couple things that I give, like friends that have charities or they doing fundraisers, 100 here, birthday fundraisers, 200 there. And, and then this past year, one of the things that I did, so I wrote a book called Life Purpose Secrets, 10 Ways to Find Meaning in Times of Uncertainty. And one of the things that I did was I started doing coaching sessions. So like, I guarantee that I'll help you find your purpose in 1 hour. And to do that, I'll charge you $300.
Right.
So I started donating that, my coaching sessions to help fund a clinic in Haiti. Between my fundraising, myself, and I helped fund 2 months of the clinic.
That's incredible, Steve.
So 400 people will get healthcare and prescription medicine for the month.
Dude, that's just insane. That's just inspiring, bro.
But everybody could do that. I mean, that's not like, it's just a desire, you know what I mean? And so for me, my goal really is to just help people build their own things that help other people through entrepreneurship, through living your passion. Like, I'm just a big fan of there are people with like large social followings. They could do little fundraisers too, right? It's not just about giving your money. I mean, you, for instance, you raised, a couple $1,000s for us and then you got vans to match it, right? Like, that's incredible.
That was dope.
You use your platform. I mean, dude, if you want to count towards if you want to count towards your 6,000, I think you gave us 2,300 right?
Yeah.
And then the 2,000 match from Vans. That's 4,000. All you got to do is do another fundraiser and you're almost up to your 6,000.
It's unreal. Yeah. No, that is it. Right. Thank you, Steve. That's really taking me off the hook. I was thinking, holy shit, how am I going to find this? But that was last year. So now I got to do it again. Yeah, I'm in, dude. I'm in.
It's about reframing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could do the FNRad podcast shred fund.
Totally.
Every guest donates a certain amount.
Oh, that'd be sick.
And then, so every guest donates, $100.
Sure.
So whatever. Right. That's what you should do.
Okay. This is what I should do. I should start a feature of the show.
Kick it off with this episode.
Okay. I'm going to kick it up on this episode. It's going to be the Stoked something. I got to come up with the right terming for it, but I'm going to get the guest to invite their fans that listen to the show to go and donate $10 to Stoked,
whatever,
to in the name of the guest. Like the guests say sincerely, like, hey, I want you guys, if you guys like me and like listening to this conversation and you want to do something cool, donate $10 in my name. Dude, it's got to be specific. We got to make either a fund,
but you could do like the FNRad fund.
Yes. And
you can make Stoked one of the beneficiaries. And I'm sure you got other things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
To be the beneficiaries.
Yeah, dude.
And then you go back to Vans and your other sponsors, be like, hey, will you match this at the end of the year?
Oh my God. Would you imagine? Yeah, of course.
But then, dude, because then what ends up happening is that every donor, they should PayPal you. And then you can get their email address and then you build up your mailing list.
Yeah.
Because then once you start building out your mailing list, then you'll send out the email once a week. And then you'll probably get more people from there because then they'll share it and what have you.
Totally.
So, dude, you can end up raising a lot of money.
Yeah, man.
You have a Patreon?
Not yet. People have been talking about it.
You should do a Patreon. People should support you on this. For sure.
Yeah, no, this sounds incredible.
You should set up a Patreon.
Yep.
And I mean, a few $100 a month, and then turn some of these stories that you're getting into like a coffee table book or something.
Totally.
And then people, if you want, I could point you in the right direction on how to do that.
Yeah, because there's avalanche awareness right? Like, because a lot of people got out of professional snowboarding in an avalanche or lost friends or whatever. So there's all sorts of amazing places that we can.
It'd be great too that like if you could use this podcast as a way to just like to support the things that you care. That's honestly that's my little motto. It's called hustling for good.
Hustling for good.
Where you use what you have to help other people. Like you hustle not just for yourself, you hustle for good.
I'm into it.
Just imagine being able to like impact other things because of this podcast. And I'm sure you haven't even scratched the surface as to like how many other guests that you can get.
Oh, totally.
And then everybody that donates could be entered into a raffle because now you're getting other sponsors involved.
Yeah, man.
A raffle a week.
It's too easy. Steve, talking to you is so inspiring. I am so stoked that I reached out and that you were cool to do the show, man. You're just one of those guys that you're like a magnet for feeling good.
Thank you, bro.
And we started this conversation in such a dark place. It's such a shitty day yesterday. And today I'm feeling like $1 million. This is really actually going to impact what I'm doing with the show.
Last year you fundraised and raised $4,000 for Stoked.
Yeah, that's the listeners of this show raise that money. Yeah. And I'm into that. That's like we can all feel good about the fact that we got kids out onto the snow. We got kids out into the surf. We got kids out on skateboards. Like we're adding people to the group. It's not enough to just, you mentioned it in the beginning. People get really, really out of their minds when there's something that can be perceived as racist has happened. Oh, they get very, very upset, very visually. They get on their Instagrams and they talk about how upset they are. I'm so upset. Oh my God. But really doing something doesn't require much more than making a video, right?
Yeah.
there's a lot of expression of like, oh my God, racism is so horrible. Okay, well, let's start doing something really impactful, like cutting that gap. Like when you're talking about people on the ski hill, yeah, man, I grew up with a family that was like, hey, you got to choose soccer or hockey or lacrosse. You got to choose something fun to do because you can't just sit around. You also have to do fun things. Like to think of someone growing up where their parents aren't saying like, hey, we're going skiing this weekend. Like that, we need to change that if you can.
So, all right. So we came up with the plan.
Yeah, we did.
An impact plan.
Impact plan, dude. I'm 100% in.
I mean, because the other thing too is like, so if you could get some of these guest sponsors,
yep,
that could be impactful.
Yeah, you just do because I have a guest a week, and and I might not be able to get every single one, but if the guest knows ahead of time, like, look, we do this one, this is one of the main reasons we're doing the show is we're actually raising money to get more kids out snowboarding.
Yeah.
So if you've got, maybe you got an extra bag from one of your sponsors. You want to donate a bag and we're going to raffle it off. And then on the show, they have to say, hey, I brought this bag. It's super sick. I used it one time in the backcountry. It's epic, but I got 2 and I don't need 2. Send $5 for a ticket and I'll do the draw live on my Instagram next Wednesday or whatever, give it a week.
Yeah.
And have an announcement every week and a draw every week. And if the guest is cool enough to send something to a listener, I think that'd be pretty impactful for the listener too.
That would be really impactful.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I don't have to do all the sending. The sending is hard, man. Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then that could be the guest donation would just be their time and their effort to send something out personally. That would be sick. I'm fleshing this out. This is going to happen. That's cool, man. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, man. Thanks for being you, dude. You're the best. I'm glad we were able to make it work. Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve. We'll talk soon. So I've registered FNRad Foundation at hotmail.com to receive PayPal or e-transfer payments for the foundation. 100% of the money raised will be going to organizations who build and support the snowboarding community. Russell Winfield has joined the board of directors and will be working hard to promote the foundation in upcoming shows. Donate $1 or more and I'll put your name in this week's raffle for a prize like a skateboard or a t-shirt or a long sleeve or a toque. If you're still waiting for your prize from the last raffle, please reach out to the show on Instagram or at fnradfoundation@hotmail.com and I'll send it out ASAP. FNRad shoutouts this week to Steve Larosiliere. His book, Life Purpose Secrets, 10 Ways to Find Meaning in Times of Uncertainty, is a guide to finding your life's purpose through self-reflection and connection with others. Steve explains that finding and pursuing a meaningful purpose will bring joy and fulfillment in ways that just working a job can't. You can buy Life Purpose Secrets at lifepurposesecrets.com, Apple Books, Indigo, or Amazon. But since my wife works at a local bookshop, I'd recommend you either buy it directly from Steve or at your local bookstore. Special thanks to the listener who made the effort to tell me he loves the show when he heard me on Mount Seymour this week. So rad. And be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast presented by Vans, brought to you by SIA Productions.